was about 5 years old when I discovered that not everybody in the world was Catholic. It just seemed so strange to me. Do you ever have that experience, some of you cradle Catholics? It was very shocking because I just assumed that this is all true, obviously. My mom and dad taught me that Jesus is on the altar in the Blessed Sacrament, and Mary and the saints are in heaven praying for me, and all of the things that I was taught as a child. And it was shocking to imagine that not everybody in the world believed what I had been taught. It just seemed so self-evidently true. So it was perplexing to me when I discovered that there were kids in my kindergarten class who didn't come from homes where they believed in Jesus. And as I got older, I began to run into some of the challenges that are typical when you're a kid. One that really sticks out of my mind was from the 4th grade. I was on a field trip, and I was sitting next to this girl in my class, and on the bus ride home, after a long, fun day of this field trip, and we were having a great time talking, and somehow or another, on the bus trip back, she decided to ask me what church I went to, which had nothing to do with anything we were talking about. And I said, oh, well, I go to the Catholic Church. I named my parish. And she looked at me with a look of disgust and horror, I think, on her face. And she said, "You're Catholic?" I was like, I let her down, letting her know that I was Catholic. I said, "Yeah, why?" She said, "Well, Catholics are idolaters." And I said, "We are not." What's an idolater? I didn't know what that meant. I'd never heard the word before. And she said, see, here's a beautiful image of Our Lady. She said, well, Catholics worship idols. And I didn't know what an idol was either. And I said, what do you mean? She said, you have statues and you worship those. Those are idols. And the Bible says you shouldn't bow down before statues. You shouldn't worship idols. And the Catholic Church teaches idolatry. And I knew she was wrong. I knew I had never worshiped a statue. I had never seen my parents worship a statue. I'd never even heard of worshiping a statue. It was so foreign to my mind that I couldn't quite connect what she was saying. And it was only years later that I discovered in my research and study of the Bible that indeed in Exodus chapter 20, God commands Moses not to carve any graven images of anything in the sky above or on the earth below or on the waters beneath the earth. And he says, do not bow down to them, do not worship them. So I was starting to put two and two together later in life, and I realized, oh, that's what she was talking about. She and her church, whatever church that was, she was being told that because we have religious images, that equals idolatry. And perhaps you know people who hold that very view. I've run into them countless times in my life. But in the 4th grade, I didn't know what to tell her. All I could say was, that's not true, we don't worship statues. But I didn't know what else to say. But I've never forgotten that day. It was my first opportunity to practice apologetics, and I failed miserably because I had no knowledge. Interesting on that particular point, if you look 5 chapters later in Exodus 25, you'll see where God actually commands the carving of religious images. That's one of several places in the Old Testament where God either approves of or commands the carving, the fashioning of religious images. In Exodus 25, it happened to be the 2 cherubim angels that would sit on top of the Ark of the Covenant. Now, I didn't know that in the 4th grade, but as I learned that later, I began to realize it's not graven images that the Lord was prohibiting, but it is idolatry. And in our own day, perhaps few people are prone to worshiping a statue, although perhaps somewhere you might find somebody who might commit that sin. But we have a lot of other idols that occupy our time and attention in the modern world. Money, pleasure, power, that kind of thing. I didn't know that in the 4th grade.